Welcome to the fourth Sunday of Lent. You can see a chink of light there. I thought it's very apropos because we're getting towards the light. We followed the pattern of John that John sets for us. Encounters in a sign or a miracle, then conversation and teaching. Our first Sunday in Lent was Jesus' encounter with Nicodemus and talk about the Spirit. The second Sunday was Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well. The third Sunday was Jesus' encounter with the blind man. Today we meet Lazarus, brother of Martha and Mary, and we have a representation of Jesus meeting Lazarus in the picture. Malcolm is going to talk about Martha and Jesus' meeting, and I'll talk about Lazarus and Jesus. You'll be amazed to hear that this is the first time in 45 years of ministry, that we've presented a sermon together.
Well, at the end, you might realise why we haven't. This is a most complex reading, and I haven't been looking at the inclusive version which we had read, so there could be slight differences, and I'm going to leave a lot out. So, what a crazy world we are living in during this Lenten season, where we remember the days leading up to Christ's death. How do we keep our faith when there is death all around us? As the hymn says, death and decay in all around I see, but thou who changes not, abide with me. Abide with us. Abide with us. Today's reading from John 11 is specifically for his disciples, which means you and I. And if you have ever had any dealings with people who know that they're going to die, it is often the case that they are worried about their loved ones and how they will cope without them. And sometimes people hang on too long for this reason. So in today's reading, Jesus is teaching the disciples about death, how to face death, how to continue living when a loved one has died. And so Jesus tells about dying through the story of Lazarus. And you could say it is a trial run for Jesus' death to teach the disciples and the many people around his tomb that with faith in Jesus, death isn't the end. When Jesus heard the news that Lazarus was dead, he waited 2 days before he went. Who knows why he did that? Except that with death, there is often a lot of waiting. Jesus didn't panic. He then said in the New Revised Standard Version, let us go back to Judea, let us go back to Bethany. And the disciples were very reluctant because Jesus was nearly stoned in Bethany, just in the verses before this one. They don't want to go. They are afraid, but Jesus wasn't. Maybe this is one of the first lessons the disciples needed to learn in preparation for Jesus' final days, is not to be afraid of death. And Jesus gives them the invitation, let us go back. He wants them to come with him. And then Jesus repeats the invitation, let us go back. Jesus needed to have his disciples with him. Just come with me, just journey with me, just bear witness to me, just follow me, believe in me. That's all I'm asking you to do. Amazingly, who speaks next in the story? Doubting Thomas. He understood what Jesus was asking about death. And he said to the other disciples, let us go that we may die with him. Wow, that was quite a statement from Thomas the doubter. He got the message that following Jesus would require some dying. Thomas hasn't quite got to the resurrection bit yet, which he didn't do till he witnesses the holes in Jesus' hands and in his feet. And then we move in the story to Bethany, where Jesus meets Mary and Martha on the road. And Martha was the one who complained to Jesus that he should tell Mary to get up from Jesus' feet and help him with the chores. Martha, the complainer, said to Jesus that Lazarus wouldn't have died if Jesus had been there. So he had a little go at Jesus. Then the punchline of this whole section of the story, Jesus declares who he really is, and he reveals it most succinctly to the complainer, the female complainer. He says to Martha, this is the crux of the story, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. And then he asks Martha, do you believe this? And she makes her affirmation, yes, Lord, I believe. Martha gets it. This statement of faith is what the disciples, including us, need to believe to get through to life in its fullness, to survive the many deaths that we have to endure in life. The act of going back to Judea, prompted by Thomas, and then Martha's affirmation of faith, would allow the disciples to experience a mini death and resurrection, a preparatory death and resurrection, to enable them to face Jesus' death without fear. And it's amazing that in this story, two of the anti-heroes that nobody wants to be like, Martha and Thomas, hold the key to keep believing even through the darkest times. Jesus is calling us to trust him, to go with him on this journey to his death and the many deaths that we have to endure. Amen.
We meet Jesus in a very human situation. He's deeply moved. He weeps over his friend Lazarus. When he goes to the burial site and sees Mary crying for her brother, Jesus is deeply moved and weeps too. This is the human Jesus. The grief of the moment is overwhelming as he weeps for his friend. John portrays Jesus' grief as very real and moving, and even the crowd notice and comment that Jesus must have loved Lazarus. But then Jesus uses a loud voice. Lazarus, come out. The crowd must have been on tenterhooks, wondering whether the miracle would happen. This picture shows the result. I'm sorry it's so small, but taking this coming out from the grave as a metaphor in our lives, what has shut us in our tomb? How is Jesus calling us out from death to life? I don't know whether you've noticed, but I've had trouble lately with my speech and have recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Of course, my temptation was to give up, leading me into the tomb of self-pity, to focus on why did this happen to me? That's true of life's disasters, isn't it? They act as little death in our lives, and we're never the same afterwards. So the call of Jesus comes to us in a very personal way. Lazarus is addressed by name. Lazarus, come out from your tomb. What's your tomb? What's holding you in a death-like group? I wonder if we can try now to say in a loud voice your name and come out. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, Nerida, come out. Then the wrappings, the bindings that have held Lazarus prisoner are taken off. Unbind him and let him go free. Here to me is the heart of the gospel. We are released from the tomb of despair and depression, unbound to the freedom of following Jesus. What a Lenten message. May you come out of the tomb of self-pity. May you be unbound and set free. And may you know this freedom in following Jesus in this Lenten season. Amen.